Donald Trump to Roy Moore to Jerusalem to fake news to a terror attack in New York City. All coming your way today.
It's time for The Line of Fire with your host, activist, author, international speaker, and theologian, Dr. Michael Brown, your voice of moral, cultural, and spiritual revolution. Michael Brown is the director of the Coalition of Conscience and president of Fire School of Ministry. Get into The Line of Fire now by calling 866-34-TRUTH. That's 866-34-TRUTH. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
Well, I am thrilled to be back with you from India. Had quite an interesting journey back from leaving my hotel in Visakhapatnam. Driving back home ended up being 59 hours. Yeah, so I'll tell you about that in a moment. But what could have been really, really tragic news from New York just ends up being a close call and a further wake-up call. So if you didn't hear the news somehow this morning, rush hour at Port Authority, New York City. So you're talking about thousands and thousands of people at a very busy commuting place in New York City. Terrorist sought to blow himself up, was wearing a crudely put together suicide vest. And he's from Bangladesh. He was a taxi cab driver. Said he was doing this out of affiliation with ISIS. But headline news, he sets the explosive off. Is there a debate? There's a debate whether he did it prematurely, whether it went off prematurely or properly. Either way, he was injured, 3 others injured, none with life-threatening injuries. This could have been horrific. This could have been hundreds or thousands of people affected in a life-threatening, life-changing way. Instead, it ended up being very minor, for which we thank God. But just a bit of a wake-up call to remember that there are people like this in our midst. That there are people like this who've either come from other countries and been radicalized, or came as radicalized, or are within America and are getting radicalized. Either way, it's amazing to me that we don't have things like this happening almost every day of the week. I think one reason is divine restraint. I think another reason is that law enforcement is on top of a lot of this and probably stopping things before they happen. But this is the type of hatred and animosity among radical Muslims. And here's what's ironic. Last month in the UK was Islamophobia Awareness Month in the UK. So if you see something, you act on it. You see someone speaking in a way that's, creating fear about Muslims or speaking in a disparaging way about Islam, better report it. Well, if people are speaking against Muslims so as to incite hatred and terrorist attacks against them, I think that's the kind of thing we should be aware of. But for people to say, we have an issue, we have a problem with radical Islam, we have a genuine concern with radical Islam, I think that is absolutely fair and right. So ironically, you have Islamophobia Awareness Month in November, all right, in the UK, and then the beginning of this month, December, there's a plot from radical Muslims to assassinate Prime Minister May that gets exposed. So thankfully, this did not happen in the U.S. Thankfully, this did not happen in the U.K. But it's a bit ironic to me that it's on the heels of Islamophobia Awareness Month in the U.K. All right, so coming back from India, my 25th trip to India, the last night I was totally shocked when we finished presentation of the grads from the Discipleship Training Center. To my absolute shock, they did a special video presentation with clips and with still shots from 25 years of ministry in India. I was moved, I was touched, tears across the board. Then flying home, the last leg just had an 1.5-hour flight out of JFK in New York, but crazy delays, even crazier miscommunication. Ended up waiting there 8+ hours. Finally found out we weren't going to fly. Couldn't get a hotel room anywhere within 30 miles of airports. Ended up having maybe I'll tell you later, a bit of an adventure getting home. Ended up 59 hours from door to door. But glad to be back with you. All right, a whole lot to come. Donald Trump in Jerusalem when we come back. You don't need a PhD to know that our world is in serious trouble. All it takes is one glance at your social media feed to see that we're at a critical time, not just in our nation's history, but in world history. And this generation of believers is facing an unprecedented barrage of attacks against the truth of the gospel, and they're coming from 1,000 different directions. If ever there was a time for the body to speak out, to raise a righteous standard, and to be a beacon of hope in the midst of a sea of despair, now is that time. Through preaching and teaching and radio and writing and social media, God's given us a voice. I mean, by His grace, many, many lives have been impacted for the gospel around the world. So it's for that reason I want to take you behind the scenes here at Ask Dr. Brown, let you know about some of the exciting projects we're involved in, and share with you how you can help us fulfill this great mandate from the Lord in this battle for the hearts and minds of a whole generation. Over the last several months, our studio has undergone a massive overhaul. We have put thousands of dollars into revamping what is basically our command central. This studio is not just used to produce the Line of Fire radio broadcast, but we also produce in this studio hundreds of YouTube videos that you see, as well as our media for other ministry outlets like God TV and NRB TV. So this studio is really the heartbeat of everything, all the media that we produce at Ask Dr. Brown. And now we are ready to step into a whole new realm, and we can do it with your help. So I'm asking you today to partner with us. Through your generous donations, we can fulfill this mandate from the Lord in this battle for the hearts and minds of a whole generation, and you can help amplify my voice. Friends, stand with us today. Together, we're making a difference.
It's the Line of Fire with your host, Dr. Michael Brown. Get into the Line of Fire now by calling 866-34-TRUTH. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
Thanks, friends, for joining us today on the Line of Fire. Michael Brown, so glad to be back from India. 866-34-TRUTH, 866-348-7884. Before I talk about Donald Trump and Jerusalem, I've got a question for you. I'm currently doing a Twitter poll on this and a Facebook poll, so you may have responded there, but welcome to call in. Here's my question. If you voted for Donald Trump in 2016, let's say the elections were today. Let's say he was running against a Hillary Clinton type liberal. Would you vote for him again? Voted for him in 2016. Would you vote for him again if the elections were today and he had a similar candidate on the Democratic Party on the Democratic side against him? Conversely, if you did not vote for Donald Trump in 2016 and the elections were today and he was running against a Hillary Clinton type Democrat, would you now vote for him? So would you change your vote and say, hey, I voted for him in 2016, but I definitely wouldn't today based on what I've seen, the way he's led? Would you say, oh, no, that's exactly what I expected. I'm glad I voted for him. Or if you didn't vote for him, would you say, now that I've seen him in action, actually, I would vote for him? Or like, man, you kidding me? I'm glad I didn't vote for him. I wouldn't this time around. 866-34-TRUTH is the number to call. Okay. Donald Trump and Jerusalem. This was major breaking news in recent days. Some of the biggest news on a certain level, not just in days, but in weeks and months and years. You have to remember, going back to President Clinton, there was an official congressional statement that Jerusalem was the capital of Israel and that we would be relocating our embassy to Jerusalem. And you have to understand, this was designated the capital of Israel in 1950, and it is on every level the functioning capital. Just think of Washington, D.C. Our White House is there, Congress is there, Supreme Court is there, official government buildings are there. Exact same thing with Jerusalem and Israel, except that there's a 3,000-year plus history with Jerusalem as far as going back to David's day and being the capital of Israel. And then it has been the emotional heart and soul of the nation for centuries in exile, saying next year in Jerusalem, next year back in the land, next year in Jerusalem. looking forward to these things and praying on a daily basis, if you're a traditional Jew, for the rebuilding of Zion, of Jerusalem. So Donald Trump did what has been on the books in Congress since, 1995, and what Bill Clinton ratified and said he would do, and George Bush said he would do, and Barack Obama said he would do, and Donald Trump said he would do. I remember during the campaign when he said he was going to do it, and then once elected, he reiterated. People are like going crazy. Wait. Every president says they're going to do it, but nobody actually does it. So listen, what he did was recognize reality. What he did was not come up with some new notion. What he did was recognize reality. That's number one. Number two, it is the right thing to do for a host of reasons, and it is helping those in the Muslim world, the Arab world, Palestinians, just accept the fact that this is not changing, that an undivided Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, and that's the end of the subject. I read these statements and all kinds of rhetoric, and now it's going to mean, it's not status quo for the Muslims or the Christians. No, it's going to guarantee that. Whereas when you have Muslim rule over an area, you're not going to get guaranteed status quo. I can assure you, if you had Muslim rule over East Jerusalem, you would not have Jewish access to the wall, and you would not have all the freedoms that you have there now. And that's the way it was from 1948 to 1967. So here's something interesting. 250 rabbis. Check this out. Article posted in unitedwithisrael.org and other places says this: 250 Israeli rabbis have said to President Trump, "You are fulfilling biblical prophecies." So the letter was initiated by Safed or Tzafat Chief Rabbi Shmuel Eliyahu, delivered by Yossi Dagan, the head of the Samaria Regional Council, telling the American president, "You have the rare privilege to be the first president to recognize Jerusalem as the eternal capital of the state of Israel. We are confident that you will be remembered in the history of the Jewish people forever. As one who stood at the forum was not afraid, may God's promise to Joshua be fulfilled upon you. Did I not command you, be strong and have courage? Do not fear and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." Now, President Trump, as the president of the United States, cannot do what he's doing based on biblical prophecy, and I don't think that was in his mind. Rather, he believes this is the right thing to do. And many secular commentators, both Christian and Jewish, say, yes, it is the right thing to do. And it is bold and it is courageous. And for that, he should be commended. Now what's interesting is just looking at this, again, from a secular viewpoint. Check this out. Other nations immediately said, hey, we want to move our embassies as well, or we want to look into it or consider the possibility. The Philippines being one of them, and the Czech Republic, interestingly, being another one. So this is the leader of the Czech Republic, and listen to what he has to say, all right? He slams the EU, European Union, their cowardice, calls them cowards in terms of their Jerusalem stance. Let me read a little of the article posted on Times of Israel. Czech President Milos Zeman on Saturday accused EU states of being cowards in the response to his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump's recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Quote, "The European Union cowards are doing all they can so a pro-Palestinian terrorist movement can have supremacy over a pro-Israeli movement." Good for him, calling them out as cowards. Now, the plot thickens. In the last few days, there was a terrorist attack in Sweden on a Jewish synagogue. And there was a threat, we want to kill the Jews. This is coming from a Muslim community. And there is a tweet that was posted by Avi Meyer. Avi Meyer posted this, tweeted this out, and he made a very interesting observation when he tweeted it out. What he said was this: the president of the United States made an announcement some people don't like. So protesters in the UK and Sweden are threatening to kill Jews, not Americans, Jews, not Israelis, Jews. Do you get that? In other words, this is not just an issue of Israel. This sparks anti-Semitism. This sparks Jew haters around the world. Why not attack the Americans? Why not say we're upset with President Trump and the Americans? No, they didn't do that. Why not specifically target Israelis? Because to the radical Muslim and to the Jew hater, this is not just about Israel. This is not just about the Jewish people. This is not, I should say, just about Israel. It is about the Jewish people on a larger level. Israel equals Jews in the eyes of many Jew haters around the world. And constantly on our YouTube channel, we get posts from Jew haters. And I noticed one today. It was in response to a video about Hamas and some attitudes from Hamas, and a Palestinian father is saying, yeah, he'd have his child, absolutely fight for Hamas and die for Hamas. And I noticed this one comment that said, how can you negotiate with Zionists? You, Israel, are the kill humanity. Obviously, broken English here. Abdullah Ammar is the guy's name, or the name used on screen. How can you negotiate with Zionists? You, Israel, are the kill humanity. The world must destroy you. By which many mean must destroy you, Jews. So there are people who are not anti-Semites, who do not believe in Zionism today, who are not pro-Israel, and I recognize that. But I have to say that the vast majority of virulent anti-Zionism is just a mask for virulent anti-Semitism. It is Jew hatred directed towards Jews in one particular part of the world. For my part, I'm thrilled that President Trump recognized Jerusalem as the capital in this formal way and said that we will begin to make plans to move the embassy. I personally believe God will bless him and America for doing this. Exactly how that unfolds, God knows, but I do believe it is right in God's sight. I also believe it's righteous. Do I believe that ultimately at the end of the age there will be a united Jewish Jerusalem that welcomes Jesus, Yeshua back? Yes, I do. So I believe at the end of the age that there will be a united Jerusalem, but that it may get divided 10 times before that. I don't know. I can't say this is fulfilling biblical prophecy, but I am saying to recognize that there must be a united Jerusalem, a Jewish Jerusalem that welcomes back the Messiah. Yes, I do believe that is biblical prophecy. And in that sense, this could be a step towards filling it. Either way, as the president, he has to make a decision based on international and national interest. And I believe he made the right one. All right, we come back. We'll take some of your calls. A lot more coming your way. Stay tuned. It's been a beautiful spring day in the suburbs of Pennsylvania on this Thursday, June 7th, 1961. You just got home from work and your wife's almost finished preparing one of her typically delicious dinners. Tonight is TV night and everybody's ready to enjoy Ozzie and Harriet and Leave It to Beaver. Of course, a live in-person show is incredible. Who could forget your family outing 2 weeks ago when you all drove into Manhattan and saw My Fair Lady on Broadway? But TV has its own unique appeal, especially with shows like Lassie and Andy Griffith and Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color and Father Knows Best and the Flintstones. And they're all on at night so the whole family can enjoy them together. Well, on this lovely spring night, you're a bit more tired than you realize, fighting to stay awake through the current Beaver episode, even though it's a bit more suspenseful than normal. But this night, you doze off just before the end of the program, and when you wake up a few minutes later, everything's changed. Well, the TV's still there, except it's giant now, flat, hanging on a wall, exploding with colors, and instead of the smiling Cleaver family, it's... No, this can't be real. A nude couple going on their first date? What's happening? In a panic, you look for another channel, quickly figuring out how to use the newfangled remote control you're now holding in your hands, but your eyes can't believe what you're seeing. Did I wake up in hell? But something else is different when you look around the room. You're the only one there. Your 15-year-old son is out with his best friend Robbie, who used to be called Robin, back when he was a girl, along with Robbie's 17-year-old brother. They went to see a new movie in the Hostel series where people are tortured to death and mutilated for fun, but hey, at least he's out of the house. It's better than playing Grand Theft Auto for 6 straight hours where your boy's raping women and killing cops on his video screen. Suddenly, you wake up with a start. This was all a dream. With relief, you look around at your wonderful family smiling at their dad who fell asleep in the middle of TV night, and you think to yourself, thank God, this was only a bad dream. There's no way America or my family could ever look like that.
It's The Line of Fire with your host, Dr. Michael Brown, your voice of moral, cultural, and spiritual revolution. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
Thanks so much for being part of today's broadcast. By the way, some exciting news coming your way starting the first of the new year. We'll be changing our radio clock. What does that mean? It means that we will have one less break every half hour. Yeah, folks that said, boy, you have so many breaks. Well, actually, we don't have breaks as long as others in terms of the actual time that we're on the radio compared to others with commercial breaks and things like that. We actually get a little bit more time, but the way things are broken up does break things up a bit much. We have made some major changes that you are going to love coming your way starting January 1st. 866-34-TRUTH. If you voted for Donald Trump in 2016, if the elections were today against a similar candidate, would you vote for him again? Conversely, if you did not vote for Donald Trump in 2016 and the elections were today against a similar Hillary Clinton type candidate, would you vote for him this time around? We'll take some calls and we go to Richard in Charlotte, North Carolina. Welcome to the Line of Fire.
Hello, Dr. Brown, my first-time caller. I've been tonight and listened to you on the radio. I'm glad to be talking to you today. To answer that question, absolutely I would vote for him again. I campaigned for Donald Trump here in the Queen City of Charlotte, North Carolina. I think he's trying to do a lot of good things internationally and domestically. And, what we're seeing right now in the repugnant party and that are not supporting, we might not even get a tax break because it's just ridiculous. But yes, I would vote for him.
All right. What would you say in terms of your expectations? Where has he most lived up to your expectations?
Well, he stood his ground in what he said he was going to do. He tried to repeal Obamacare, which he promised to do, and he's also tried to get us a tax break. But like I said, we're seeing people in the party that actually put in this party that have jumped. It's just been really ugly. I don't know if anybody could operate in this current culture of politics.
Got it. Understood. The political establishment, that's been the issue really from day one. What about has he done anything that has disappointed you or things that you're negatively surprised with?
Well, as far as some of his tweets and stuff, I do think he could, and I think he's getting some. That's improved a little bit. But on the one hand, that's kind of a two-edged sword,
Got it.
Things that I wish he might have thought through, but he has been quite symbolic sometimes against some people that might need to be said something harsh to, And
Got it.
That's I think President Obama said things that were inappropriate at times, and nobody called him out for that. We got a double standard in the media. I think most people see that.
Yeah, well,
that's one thing. I think he's the high ground a little more often.
Got it. All right. Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think there are things he said he would do that he has been steadfast on. I think in terms of trying to go against the grain of the establishment, he's sought to do that by and large, which reason that people voted for him. I think the tweeting before speaking, thinking and still tweeting, obviously there are things that get stirred up unnecessarily. I do believe, though, if you listen mainly to right-wing media, then they were always on President Obama when he would make a comment that they would feel was inappropriate. But he didn't do it in a way that Trump does it, which stirs up, and as on a regular basis. But as far as media coverage being overwhelmingly negative against him, no question about that whatsoever. Hey, thanks for weighing in. I appreciate it. 866-34-TRUTH. We'll take some more calls as we go on. Speaking of Trump and the media, when I was in India, I was told that the coverage about him is constantly negative, although obviously it was a big thing with Ivanka Trump being over in India. with that largely negative coverage. You don't hear a lot of the good that he's doing. Now, it could be my friends that are watching international news, CNN International or BBC or whatever. When I was in Germany, told them the same thing. The coverage is overwhelmingly negative. Looked at some UK coverage of Trump, and it was 98% negative, and some very similar stats from the States. So I did a Twitter poll. This is very interesting. I said, okay, there's been a lot of fake news in the last week. I mean, a major ABC News report that was totally wrong about Trump. So much that bad news got out. There was a momentary stock market crash because of the bad news. All right. That's significant. And then when it was fixed, the newscaster has been suspended without pay for a month and said he can't cover Trump anymore. That's pretty serious. Then CNN, big breaking news, major story. Oh, but they blew it. It was a wrong story. The whole story was based on a wrong date. Once you had the right date, there was a story there. Then a Washington Post reporter posts pictures of Trump's rally, where he did support Roy Moore again, his rally in Pensacola, which is right on the border of Alabama, 15 minutes outside of Alabama. And he has his rally, and the place is packed out. The Washington Post journalist tweeted out pictures before the rally started, a few hours before, when the place is basically empty. Trump nailed him for that. He said, hey, I made a mistake. You're right. Trump said he should be fired. Anyway, I did a survey on my Twitter feed, and I asked folks, why so much fake news recently? Is it because of media bias? Is it because journalists are rushing to get the latest breaking news and they're not being careful, just shoddy journalism, or something else? The overwhelming response was media bias. In other words, people think they are not hearing accurately from the media because of bias. That means when they do have accurate things to report, people are like, no, I don't know if it's true. It's very dangerous, because when we are getting properly informed, people don't think we are. And when we think we are, we're not. Dangerous. I have put out some articles in recent days that I think you will find very relevant. Despite the travel back from India, I was able to write regularly in India and here. So check out my latest articles. I think you'll find them very helpful. Should Christians vote for Roy Moore? Pragmatic and moral approach. In fact, on the other side of the break, I'm going to discuss that with you. Christians vote for Roy Moore. I've got another article that asks the question, are women nothing more than sexual objects? And I ask this question, how can we rightly condemn the sexual abuse of women in our culture? How can we rightly condemn the abusers, the predators, those who are raping and molesting and harassing women and treating them as sexual objects? How can we rightly condemn that while at the same time having a culture that promotes women as sexual objects day and night? Now, let me be plain and clear. If a young, attractive actress who's willing to undress in front of a camera goes to meet with a producer or director in Hollywood, that does not empower that person to abuse her. That does not empower that person to rape her or take advantage of her sexually in any way, shape, size, or form. Period. End of subject. At the same time, how can we address that evil while not also talking about the evil of a culture that day and night presents women as sexual objects and objectifies them as such, and creates a culture that even incites greater lust towards women? We've got to address both. We'll be right back.
On the program today is Dr. Michael Brown. Good to have you on, sir.
Great to be with you. Thanks.
Yeah, it's good to have you on again, I should say. When it comes to this whole idea of the marriage crisis that we're in as a culture, should we capitulate at this time? I mean, what do you think our stance should be as a church as it relates to marriage?
Yeah, this is not the time to capitulate or throw in the towel. This is the time to push back. The Supreme Court ruling on marriage, that's our Roe v. Wade moment. This is our wake-up call. Look, when the Roe v. Wade passed, there was tremendous hostility to the pro-life position in America. And we were told it's over. The younger generation embraced embraces abortion. Look at how things have radically changed. 1966, April, cover story, Time magazine, Is God Dead? 5 years later, June 1971, cover story, Time magazine, The Jesus Revolution. Things can turn on a dime. Things can turn radically. I believe that gay activism has within itself the seeds of self-destruction. Once you redefine marriage, you render it meaningless. The further this goes, the ones who are going to be standing are the ones who hold to marriage and family as God intended. So rather than this being the end of the culture wars, this is the wake-up call. This is the beginning. And I believe that unless Jesus comes first, we're going to see the tide turn.
Theologian Dr. Michael Brown. Your voice of moral, cultural, and spiritual revolution. Get into the line of fire now by calling 866-34-TRUTH. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
Welcome to today's Line of Fire broadcast. I'm thrilled to be back from India. And yeah, at some point, I got to tell you just a little bit about the journey. But as always, a wonderful, wonderful time ministering in India. And you know, something that was really moving, every year now, 24 times in 25 years, we've done graduation. And these are the students graduating for the Discipleship Training Center. Some of them just older teenagers, others older men or women. All the men will go out and do church planting. They've planted over 7,000 churches, especially in tribal regions. They're also in major cities, but have done an incredible job of bringing the gospel. And many have been physically attacked. Some have been beaten. Some have been killed. I was told by my friend Yesu Padam, he believes the number of those of his church planters who've been killed so far is 5. Yeah. So here I am doing the graduation as we do every year and praying for them and sending them out. And in the natural, some of them look like nothing. And in other words, they're small. They look very shy. They maybe look like they're 15 years old. You know, I'm just saying, to the outward eye, you don't realize the men of God that they are. You don't realize their dedication to Jesus. You don't realize the authority that they have in the Lord. You look at them and think, wow, they look like much to the natural eye. And I was saying to myself, I wonder which of them might get killed for the gospel as things are getting intense in India. I'll share more about that in the coming days. We're trying to get to the American government to alert them if they don't know what's happening in India. But it's sobering. It was sobering to think of this. I thought of it in the past, but even more so this year, handing out their certificates and thinking what an honor it is for me to be with them and to pray for them. So in New York City this morning, attempted terrorist attack, and CNN reports this in the aftermath of the White House attack, that we need to look at immigration reform. The terrorist suspect arrived in the U.S. on a family immigrant visa. So this is a statement here from DHS spokesperson Tyler Halton. DHS can confirm that the suspect was admitted to the United States after presenting a passport displaying an F-43 family immigrant visa in 2011. The suspect is a lawful permanent resident from Bangladesh who benefited from extended family chain migration. Now, in some cases, family benefits are very important, that families get separated during immigration. And after many years, they're able to reunite, and they are worthy of being American citizens and being part of our country, and they are thrilled to be here. Others get in through loopholes, and it's those loopholes that we need to close. Thankfully, there was not a horrific bloodbath today. Thankfully, either the device was poorly put together or went off prematurely. But terrorists did say, yes, this was in conjunction with ISIS. And to my knowledge, this was not a specific attack because of Donald Trump's recognition of Jerusalem. In fact, even though there have been terror attacks, there was a security guard in Israel stabbed in the chest. There have been some other attacks, child injured as stones were thrown at a car driving by. Others attacked. Their bus was shot at. These were students, I believe. Thankfully, no fatalities as of this moment. But having said that, I expected more uproar. I expected more protests. It could be that when the president says this, that People get over it. They may get upset, but this is reality. Okay, we come back. If you voted for Trump in 2016, would you vote for him again now? Or if you didn't vote for him in 2016, similar circumstances, he's up against a Hillary Clinton type Democrat, would you vote for him this time around? We'll take your calls when we come back.
Nefesh, soul, life, neck.
Psalm 103 starts with these famous words, Barchi nafshi et Adonai, v'chol kravai et shem kadsho. Bless, praise the Lord, O my soul, O my nefesh, and everything within me. Bless, praise his holy name. What is the nefesh? Does it mean soul in terms of inner being? I mean, we think of Genesis 2 that the man became a nefesh chaya, a living soul. So his whole person is referred to as a nefesh. So it could mean perhaps a person, just like we talk about in the New Testament, 3,000 souls were saved. Does that mean souls as in inner being, or does it mean souls as in people? But we know it can also refer to the innermost being of a person, my nefesh, my insides, and hence it refers to me. And sometimes our translations don't say my soul, they just say me. I'm afflicted rather than my soul is afflicted. But here's a little background to the word. It seems to come from a Semitic word that relates to the neck, perhaps the back of the neck. That's debatable. You read, for example, in the Psalms, the waters have come up to my nefesh. What does that mean? Or Jonah's talking about in similar terms, like he's drowning, his nefesh, his waters up to, it means up to my neck. All right? And then from neck, you then get to the concept of the breath coming in and out of the throat. And then from the concept of breath, so someone's nefesh leaves them, it's the soul leaving / the breath leaving. And then nefesh as being that innermost being, that spiritual part of someone. So when the psalmist says, bless the Lord, oh my nefesh, he's calling on everything that is him, everything that makes up who he really is, to the core of his being, to bless the Lord. The nefesh, it is the person, it is the spirit, breath, soul within, and it can refer to just me.
866-34-TRUTH. Here again is Dr. Michael Brown.
Hey, let me give you some neat news. You know how our show runs now? Every half hour, we have a segment that's 4 minutes and change. We have a 2-minute break. And we have a segment that's almost 11 minutes, then a 2-minute break, and a segment that is about 8.5 minutes, and then 1 minute break at the top or bottom of the hour. So it breaks things up. We don't have as many ads as some others. If you listen to some other radio, the ads are much longer, but it does break things up. So big news, starting January 1st, first 3 minutes of the hour, you may have local news or national news or ads airing, but then we'll be with you for like 13-something minutes, 2-minute break, and then another 12 minutes or something. In other words, we're going to have one break in the middle of each half hour, which will give us much more extended time. So if you start listening right at the top of the hour, right at the bottom of the hour, there's going to either be 3 minutes of local news, or national news, or 3 minutes of advertising, whatever. Okay, so don't think we've gone anywhere. All right, this is going to start January 1st. All right, but then once we get going, we're going to go. We actually get a little more total broadcast time in the hour, but we'll go 12, 13 minutes, have one break, and go another 12 minutes or something, and then we're done. So we're really excited about that. So look at the results of this Twitter poll that I did in light of such bad misreporting in the last week. I mean, you talk about President Trump making a case for fake news. You had big reports, ABC and CNN, and then Washington Post in a more minor way, where they totally blew it. The information was false. So when I asked, why is there so much genuinely fake news in recent days? Is it because of media bias, or because the media are rushing to break a new story, or because of poor journalistic work, or something else? The overwhelming majority said it is media bias. 9% thought it's something else. 12% said poor journalism. 13% said people are rushing for breaking news, but everybody else, so roughly 2/3, said media bias. This is highly significant, friends. Highly, highly significant, because it means that there is massive distrust towards the media. So, for example, Judge Roy Moore wrote an article, posted this morning. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's up on the stream, or you can read it on our website. Judge Roy Moore, and I'm going to come back to this in a moment. I've got a practical and moral approach in terms of whether to vote for him or not. But here's the concern. There are some people that completely dismiss the charges against them because they started with the Washington Post, and they just don't trust the liberal media. That's bad for everybody. It's bad for the liberal media because you're there to get news out, and yet you are so discrediting yourselves that people don't believe you. But it's also bad for society as a whole, because what if liberal media is telling the truth? How do you know? What if they're accurate 8 times out of 10? Do you say, well, I don't know which is which, so I'm not going to listen to them at all? Or do you say, well, I'm going to listen to them all the time because I don't know which is wrong? Either way, it's a dangerous situation. And it's one that doesn't just create friction, but it creates an environment where we do not have the ability to trust a lot of what we're hearing. You say, well, that's good. We shouldn't just trust it. But fact is, those are the main sources we hear. So some people just believe it all. Other people don't believe any, or they just believe those on the right, or they just believe those on the left. It makes for a dangerous situation. Now, in a moment, I want to lay out for you my thoughts, a practical approach to the Roy Moore situation. In other words, if you're torn, if you live in Alabama and you like him as a candidate, but you don't want to vote for someone who may, in fact, have been guilty, not just of sexual misconduct 40 years ago, but lying about it to this day and vilifying his victims, and you don't know what is the right thing to do, I've got some advice for you. So I'm going to come back with that in a moment. But first, we will go to the phones. We'll start with Noah in Greensboro, North Carolina. Did you vote for Donald Trump in 2016? How would you vote today?
Yes, sir, I sure did, and I would definitely vote for him again this year. Like I said, we wouldn't really – the other option, with Hillary, it just wouldn't of course, I have some friends that he wasn't going to vote or thought Hillary was a better candidate, but I just – as far as I don't see it as a Christian moral, even though I know our president now has some somewhat issues with that, but with Neil Gorsuch at the Supreme Court, that was a no-brainer for me, and I don't see how anybody else could have seen any different.
Got it. So has he disappointed you primarily, or lived up to your expectations primarily, or pretty much, hey, I knew we had a mixed bag and I voted for him for the good reasons?
Well, I think he's done really good. Like I said, other than the Twitter things, like the other caller was talking about, he's probably done more than he's definitely got more guts than any other president we've had before with the Jerusalem thing and other things. He's tried to, he's got good godly men, at least counseling him, it sounds like. I know, he still can choose what he decides, but as far as counsel and the fellas he's got under him, like he's some advice, but, he's still a sinner like the rest of us. I can't judge him on that, but I think he's doing better than I thought he would.
All clear.
Still human, unfortunately.
All clear. Hey, Noah, I appreciate that. I appreciate you weighing in. 866-34-TRUTH. Now, this comes out of a conversation that Nancy and I had a couple days ago, yesterday. I just got back from India yesterday, about polling on Trump being so negative. Over, the worst approval ratings of any president, in years or ever. And I said, yeah, but I think if the elections were today, he'd win again. So we had this discussion about it. And interestingly, as I've been polling people on Twitter and Facebook and asking them this question, if you voted for him in 2016, would you now? If you didn't in 2016, would you now? If the case was similar, we had a similar scenario in terms of a Clinton-type candidate, a radical liberal-type candidate, how would you vote? So the polling's been interesting. I don't want to give you the information here, but it's been very, very interesting. Let's go back to Greensboro. Monique, welcome to the Line of Fire.
Hi. Paul, and out here. I just heard a bit. Last caller was saying, I'm so glad someone all the moral failings of Donald Trump. I don't know how he says that they have a toss-up between anything Trump is doing, not Antichrist, someone who abort, making Christians out to look like they're bigoted, because, I mean, I still am befuddled by that.
Yeah,
And
I understand.
people.
I mean, you could understand Christians having moral issues with Donald Trump's character, saying he's divisive or destructive in different ways. But when it comes to voting for someone that is going to fight abortion or stand with Israel or fight for religious liberties versus someone that's pro-abortion and could, well, attack our religious liberties and not stand with Israel, then to you it's a clear moral choice that you vote for the other. So you voted for Trump in 2016, and you would again today if the elections were held.
With a very heavy heart, because I mean, so clearly not what you call a man of God, but understands God and His sovereignty, way of working. That's what another thing I don't understand. God, it's not the main way. You know, we have to have somebody. We don't want to elect someone to run things, but if we, as we say we do, God takes the world to confound the wise.
Yeah. I would say this, Monique. I would love to see President godly character and an example to the nation in many ways. I think that would benefit us and help us. But no question, God uses unlikely people to do certain things. And He has used Donald Trump to do certain very good things, despite the misgivings we have on others. 866-34-TRUTH. Let's go to Fort Worth, Texas. Diane, welcome to the Line of Fire.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well, thank you. So did you vote for Donald Trump in 2016? Got it. And I guess you would again.
I sure.
Any surprises, positive or negative, since he's been in office?
No. Also, I did. Stay on your hands and knees. Or just weighed heavy on my heart.
Yeah. Well, it certainly did. Diane, it certainly did happen. It surprised a whole lot of people. And you know what's interesting? When the false news report came out on ABC about alleged collusion with Russia, stocks took a hit. It would mean that when confidence in this president is down, stocks go down. Confidence is up, stocks go up. Is that an oversimplification? I'm not a finance guy, but it seems to be a logical deduction. We'll be right back. I want to present to you a unique way that you can partner together with me to reach Jewish people with the good news of Jesus, Yeshua, the Messiah. Hey, Paul wrote that the gospel is to the Jew first, but many of us don't know how to reach the Jewish people with the gospel. Can I tell you, we have a unique open door, and Jewish people are ready to hear, but we need your help. When I was in Israel recently, my last hour in Jerusalem, about a dozen different people came up to me, and they wanted to thank me for the impact of our message. One Jewish woman came up to me, a believer in Jesus. She said, "You saved my son's life. He was falling away. He was getting pulled by other objections to Jesus. He read your material. He's back in the faith." A young man came up to me. He said he and his Orthodox Jewish friends, here he is, I mean, with the yarmulke, the head covering, the traditional Jewish outfit, he said he and his Jewish friends, his Orthodox friends, watch my debates with rabbis. A few years ago, I was able to lead a Holocaust survivor to faith in Jesus. He was a brilliant man, an atheist who had fled the Holocaust. He read my books on answering Jewish objections to Jesus, came to faith, led his wife to the Lord before they left this world. Friends, we have the resources. We have books ready to be translated in Hebrew to be distributed in Israel. We have our Real Messiah website, unique for reaching Jewish people, Orthodox Jews with the gospel, ready to be translated in Hebrew, ready to do internet campaigns to get into every home in Israel. Every cell phone in Israel can have this message, but we need your help. Every gift to our ministry will literally help us reach another Jewish person with the good news of Jesus the Messiah. Go to askdrbrown.org. AskDrBrown.org, and when you go there, we will partner together to bring salvation to Israel and the Jewish people. Together, we're making a great difference.
Now is the time to reach the lost sheep of the house of Israel, to share in this end-time harvest of Jewish souls, and to find out how to receive this 2-DVD set, Predestination, Election, and the Will of God Debate. Go to AskDrBrown.org and click.
Is Dr. Michael Brown.
Thank you for joining us on The Line of Fire. So I was coming back from India, left my hotel in Vishakhapatnam, the equivalent of 1 in the morning, Friday morning, coming back from India. And then going to Mumbai, and then I have a layover there. So go to a nice hotel, which you can get inexpensively there, and rest for a little bit, get to relax, and then have a nice meal there, and then head to the airport, fly out India time about 3 in the morning. By way of Paris, a couple little glitches at the airport there, go through security a couple times. Okay, get on my flight. Slept a lot to my surprise, get into JFK. At this point, been traveling now about 40 hours or so from beginning to end with all the flights. And getting to JFK and had about, was going to be like a 4-hour layover, ends up only 3 because the flight came in late. And then there was some light snow and a couple of delays. And anyway, it ends up that I'm at JFK for 8+ hours. It's a 90-minute flight, okay, 8+ hours. And they'd give an announcement. They'd say, there are delay, flight such and such to so-and-so has been delayed due to, that was it, due to, and they didn't tell you anything beyond that. Due to what? They didn't tell you. Well, then there's mass confusion. I have an app, and the app's telling me go to this gate. As I'm walking to the gate, I'm looking at one screen, and it tells me my flight's out of another gate. I go to the next screen. Oh, it's all at the same time, and it has a different gate. Finally, I walk from where we were, B48, across one terminal. It's about a 10-minute walk all the way over to B18. Downstairs is this little gate area where they can put you out by bus to other areas. Okay, B18, I'm there, and then I find out, get notified that it's now switched to B54. B54. Well, it's over 10-minute walk. No problem. Go all the way, walk all the way back across the airport, get to B54, and they look at me. They see I'm looking around. Gate agent. I said, flight to Charlotte? They said, Charlotte? They said, get on that bus. I said, what? Get on that bus now. Just get on that bus. I get on the bus. The guy says, where are you going? I said, Charlotte. He goes, no. What gate? I said, I don't know. B54. He goes, this is B54. I said, I know. They told me it's the wrong gate. I get dropped back off at B18 where I just came from. It went on for hours and hours and hours and hours. Finally, what ended up happening was about 1 in the morning, after 8-something hours there, your flight is canceled. Yep. So there was nothing viable that was going to get me out early the next day from JFK. Was able to get a flight out of LaGuardia the next morning at 9. Okay. Only one problem. Okay, I've been wearing the same clothes 2 days, no toiletries, anything like that. No big deal. But you sleep. Get a hotel. No hotels available in a 30-mile radius of the airport. So I was having a taxi drive me over to LaGuardia, thinking I get a hotel there. No hotels. So there was a big hotel. I thought they've got a big lobby. Maybe I can get lost in the lobby for a little while, sit in a chair, go to sleep. But so I went on. I said, hey, I just got a hotel change. Can't get a room. And I sit here while I make calls, no problem. And it's a hotel chain I've stayed at a lot, so I didn't long doing that. So I end up sitting there and making calls, start to fall asleep. And then I said, hey, do you mind if I just stay here until your shuttle goes back to the airport at 4:30 in the morning? So still traveling 2+ days. I haven't slept at this point this night, and go back to LaGuardia trying to sleep at the airport. And thought, you know what, I can't sleep now. I'm going to write a long letter to the particular airline just to say, here's what happened. And I think you owe me some miles in my account. So from door to door, 59 hours, and got back home yesterday about a little after noon, took a nice nap, and ready as always to start the next day. Okay, voting for Roy Moore. Big election, special election tomorrow. I wrote an article on this, posted this morning. Should Christians vote for Roy Moore? A pragmatic and moral approach. So here's the problem. It is wrong in God's sight to condemn the innocent. It is wrong in God's sight to justify the wicked. Both are very wrong. So what do you do if you would have voted for Roy Moore, who's your candidate of choice, you agree with his conservative values, you would have voted for him, but now you're not sure because of all the allegations that have come against him. Really, two are serious. Those are the most serious, from allegedly pushing himself on a 14-year-old and a 15-year-old. All right, those are the serious ones. Now, the second charge, the 15-year-old, now that's really coming to deeper question. I had questions anyway for a number of reasons. Now it's coming to deeper question because of the admission of forging or partially forging a yearbook signature. That's serious. So just throw that out right now because it's been discredited in certain ways. But the 14-year-old, just that alone, you say, well, it's 40 years ago. But if he's lying about it today, that speaks of his character today. That says a man that claims to be a moral conservative, lying about it today is a hypocrite, all right, and is vilifying someone that's a victim. That's wrong. That's ugly in God's sight. Turn it around. What if this is just a political attack on a good man? What do? Well, the elections are tomorrow. It's too late to get to the bottom of this. So here's my pragmatic advice. If you were going to vote for him anyway, in other words, before the charges, he was your candidate of choice, or you say anyone against that Democrat liberal Doug Jones, I'd vote for anybody against him. Okay. Vote for Roy Moore. Vote for Roy Moore. If I lived in Alabama and the elections were today, or they're going to be tomorrow, I would vote for him. Barring some further information coming out, I would vote for him. You say, why? Let me finish. He deserves his day in court. His accusers deserve their day in court. I do not want to see political hit jobs or political posturing get in the way of a major election, okay, and shift things in the Senate a certain way. I don't want to see that happen. And if he's being vilified and lied about, I do not want to see him sidetracked. On the other hand, if the charges are true, you should know that. So I say if you were planning to vote for him, vote for him by all means. Once he gets elected, I am sure that the court of public opinion will push these allegations forward. I feel quite sure about it. And then he and they get their day in court. If he's guilty, then he's going to have to step down because he lied, and it's going to be ugly. He's going to have to step down, and then we have a proper election, plenty of time. You have your Democrat candidate, your Republican candidate, and people get to vote in Alabama. If he's not guilty, then what was a real ugly political hit job ended up not stopping him from being elected. So that's my pragmatic advice. Everyone living in Alabama, if he was your candidate of choice before, or if any candidate against a Democrat was your candidate of choice, by all means vote for him. I believe it's the moral thing to do because it will bring things up also in a day of court, so to say. Senate Ethics Committee hearing, something like that. And if guilty, then let him feel the heat of it and have to step down and be exposed as a liar and a hypocrite, claiming to be one thing and doing another, even if it's years ago, he's lying about it today. If it's a political hit job, let him be exonerated and vindicated and serve the people of Alabama and serve the people of the United States. You can read more in my article. That is my pragmatic approach. Also, check out our latest videos and other articles. Be of great interest to you. All right, a whole lot more coming your way this week. Thrilled to be back with you live as I return from India. God bless.